This is a podcast or something like that. Hello. Wow, what episode is it today? 42? Today I'm really not sure. I want to say 42, but hello. Apologies if it's not episode 42. That would be pretty jarring to open with that and then have you look at the episode number and be like, nope. But often it is what I think it is. So let's say it's episode 42, and welcome, hello, and welcome back to the Verbal Journal podcast. We have plenty to talk about today. I just finished writing my short story for the Discord. We share some fiction in the Discord every now and then. We're in round 2 of that, and we're going to be sharing our stories with each other and reading them. So other people have shared theirs already. I haven't read other people's because I wanted to finish writing mine. And then, I'm going to do that this week. I'm really excited it's so cool reading different responses to the same prompt. And I like when something kind of draws art projects together, because then you also see the differences even more. I feel like yesterday, in my IRL life, I went to a little hangout with some friends and then also a lot of people I didn't know, sharing songs that people had written. So everyone played a song they had written, and it was very cool. Again, same thing, like there wasn't a prompt, but the prompt was play a song you've written on like an acoustic instrument, mostly guitars. Actually, it was all guitars. Different types of guitars, but so that was very cool. And you kind of, it does make you notice the differences in songwriting style, composition, focus, this and that. So that was, it's kind of similar with writing. So that was fun. I ended up writing something very different in tone than my last fiction thing for the Discord group. My last one was like just kind of funny, but this one, it's got some humorous elements in it, and this is very short. It's just like 1,000 words or less or something. But, the one I wrote today is just kind of touches on like an actual personal thing where it's kind of about like liking someone and they're very kind and nice and great and curious and enthusiastic and interested, but like there's just something missing and you just feel like they don't like you in the exact or even in a close enough way to how you like them, because that's something I've experienced in my life. So it's kind of fun to try to put into words, because it's complicated. Like I feel like when I've written about romantic situations before, or, this doesn't have to be romantic. This could just be platonic as well. But like, often maybe I'll write about a different kind of idea of maybe like liking someone and they're not interested or something like that. But it's a very curious situation when like someone is very responsive, interested, like pleasant, curious, like very much like inquisitive. And but you still like there's just something missing. I don't know, it's really hard to explain, like, I guess. So that's what I tried to explore, like something missing in the relationship, not in the person. I'm just saying, like, like you're looking for something else from, maybe it's desire or some other element. Kind of makes you reflect. So cool stuff. What's new in life? So other cool things going on. I didn't have anything. Basically life's good. I've been working. I've been, seeing clients. I've been doing art. We got the holidays, the Thanksgiving holiday coming up. I'm going to see some fam. Things are good. Things are quite good. I have, a good amount of free time. I've been enjoying, I have lots to talk about, like, podcast wise. We'll get into some of the things, because I've written down a bunch of little note. You know how I like to do that. I like to make notes of things. I'll talk about this on the podcast. I have a Google Doc, where I'll put links. I'll put this and that. I gotta say, y'all, it's fucking stacked right now. It's stacked. I don't know if it's going to be a long podcast. I don't know if it's going to be a short podcast, but it is going to be a stacked fucking podcast. Okay. You know what? Let's start with the mailbag. It's very likely no one wrote in, so don't, be disappointed if no one wrote in. But we're going to start with the mailbag to kind of incentivize people to write in a little bit more. Okay, no one wrote in. Perfect. Okay. So first thing I wanted to talk about today is, this is pretty interesting. So with the Breaking Bad video that I dropped in May, one interesting stat is the view duration. And I'm extremely proud. The average view duration is 50 minutes. So the average person who watches the video watches for 50 minutes, which is absolutely fucking mind-boggling that people listen to my voice for that long. But what's even more interesting is, so I might have covered this months ago, but there was a shift, but there's been more of a shift. Anyways, in the first month of the video being on YouTube, the average watch time was an hour plus, like an hour and 5 minutes, something like that. At literally very, very abruptly, actually, June 14th, apparently, it dropped from like an hour and 5 minutes average watch time to 50 minutes. Okay, like really overnight. And then it stayed there. So it's kind of interesting. So it stayed there. And then it's been 50 minutes. And then that was in June. And then in September, it went sort of up a little bit, almost to an hour for like a week or two. I don't know why. There probably literally is a reason. I don't know if it's because I streamed and like attracted people to my channel. I don't think that is what it is. I think it might be other reasons. But anyways, it only peaks very slightly there. And then it's gone down and it's continued going down. And since October, basically, it's been under 50 minutes watch time and falling. And the average watch time, and this is like each day there's like 4,000 people watching maybe the video. So this is like a lot of data going into this. This is not like a few people. So it's not like an outlier situation. So the average watch time of the Breaking Bad video has just been falling. And now it's 30 minutes and under, like 29, 28. So, 30, 35. So it's just very interesting that since October, the average watch time is now like 30-ish minutes instead of 50. So I just find that really interesting. I don't know if it's like the amount of time the video's been on the platform. People see it and they're like, oh, this video is 6 months old. Maybe I'm not as invested, but there's not a great reason I can think of. Maybe it's being shown to people in different ways or different circumstances. It's just very interesting that how long, like a video's average watch time is linked to like external factors, like what month it is and it's just noticeable. It's really interesting that the average watch time is 30 minutes average watch time is still amazing. I'm not complaining, but it's just really interesting that that's such a dramatic difference and it like goes in sort of phases in such a somewhat coherent way. So very cool. What is this next link to talk about? Oh yeah. I noticed that I checked so if you've been following the channel for a while, you might know I've had a rock stacking channel. And I stopped posting on it for a while. It's just at Rock Stacking League on YouTube. And honestly, I'm really proud of the stuff I put there, the first 2 videos especially. And the third one's interesting. And I will do more rock stacking, but yeah, it is hard it's mostly hard to get myself to do it because I'm just annoyed at how my camera works on my phone, but my camera's been working better, so I should just make time to do it. It's really the type of thing where like if I just like set about doing it, as soon as I start doing it, I'm like, this is so much fun. But like it just takes a little bit of setup, so I haven't gotten around to it, and I've been doing other stuff. Anyways, Rock Stacking League is dope. And at a certain point, like I guess 11 months ago, I can see, I used that channel and I was like commenting on some other videos about rock stacking. I was trying to, if you ever start a YouTube channel, it's good to like find other channels about what your channel is about and just comment on their videos and be like, oh, nice video. And then they'll check out your channel maybe, So I found a video called The Problem with Rock Stacking. And I commented on it with that channel, and I said, honestly, I kind of like rock stacking. And the name of the channel is Rock Stacking League, so it's kind of funny. And then, oh wow, I thought it was okay. That's funny. I thought it was actually I assumed it was the guy who posted the video who responded, but someone responded, "We're sworn enemies." Maybe it's like an alt for the guy who posted it, because it's funny. But okay, so that kind of ruined the joke. Anyways, it's very funny to me either way. But yeah, fuck, it's not that funny anymore. It's only funny if the person who posted the video, the problem with rock stacking, said we're sworn enemies. But I guess, okay, that didn't pan out. Fuck. Episode 42 is not going well so far. Okay, next up, I'm one of the biggest haters of Kyrie Irving, because I think he is stupid and anti-Semitic. So anytime he plays really poorly, which is often, I like to highlight that. The Mavericks, his team, they're doing quite well. They're 6-1. So, you might think, well, can I really say anything about Kyrie Irving? Well, yeah, I can. Mavericks won a game a few days ago against the Orlando Magic, and they won 117-102. So that's a big win. And Kyrie Irving, I just wanted to highlight how much he helped out the team. He did get 21 points, which you might think, 21 points, that's pretty good. Yeah, I guess. I mean, he got 10 assists. That's real. You can't make fun of that. But 21 points, he took 20 shots and got 21 points. So he only made 8 shots out of 20. So and then he shot 6 3-pointers and made 2 of them. So we are winning the fight against bigotry, is my point. And I guess he apologized for sharing extremely anti-Semitic propaganda, but it was too little too late, and like way too little. So I am one to forgive people if they actually make a genuine acknowledgement of what they did wrong. I didn't get that sense. If I'm wrong about that, maybe, I haven't like deeply looked into it. I just remember reading his like apology like weeks after he had like refused to sort of apologize or something, and it was like, I'm sorry if I seemed anti-Semitic or something. I don't know. So anyways, good job, Kyrie Irving, helping out your team by shooting under 50%. And cool. So yeah, that's great. He got 21 points with 20 shots. Luka Doncic gets 29 points with 17 shots. Lit. 5 for 10. 5 out of 10 from 3. Damn, Luka. Okay. I got a nice comment on part 5 in the Better Call Saul series, the Wolves and Sheep one, where someone said, very impressed by you theorizing about if Kim might end up coming clean about their scam. I'm late to this video, and hearing that after having seen the entire show surely was something. Yeah, I've gotten that comment once or twice, and that's really interesting, because I did say it in a slightly different context. Didn't I say that? I specifically said that in reference to, because it was like on the season 6 break where you see her almost like stop at the red light with the cops, and she like almost turns them in, right? I think that's what I was referring to. Like, she considers telling the cops, there's a man who has my husband, has my husband locked up and in an apartment, and is making me go shoot someone. I think I was referring to that, right? It's been a little while, but yeah, that's cool. That I guess that is something. It's nice to have a few things like that. It's not really what I offer with my videos, predictions type of thing, and I feel like that wasn't my strong suit. But it is cool to kind of be able to flex in that way and be like, oh, I could tell that the way she ultimately turns herself in is entirely different, but it does, I guess it's not entirely different. It comes from a very similar place of like heightened conscience. I mean, it's not that hard to watch the show and be like, Kim clearly has more of a conscience than what's his name? Jimbo. Okay. So now into the meat and potatoes, into the vegan meat and vegan potatoes of the podcast. So on this podcast, we have a topic. Not trying to brag, but let's just say my podcast has a theme. You know, I don't like to show off. I know people are going to be like, bro, your ego is out of control. But, yeah, it's a pretty super ego at the moment because I have a podcast with a theme. That's right. There's a theme on my cast. So the theme that sort of draws together this podcast, which if you listen back, it's been planned from the beginning, from episode 1, from episode 2, from episode 0, you know what I mean, in any of the 3 or 2 or 1, 0. And that theme, which I'm not stalling, I know what the theme is. The theme is art. Well, that's not a good way to put it. Fuck. The theme is life, the intersection of life and art, I would say. That's the theme. The intersection of life and art, which is probably not as good of a description as it sort of sounds, I guess. Like if you start to think about it, because life is such a broad category, so is art, but life is such a broad category. Oh, wait, my friend was asking me something last night. Let me look it up. Fur mug art. Was it Man Ray? Who did the fur mug? Who did that? Oh, Merritt Oppenheim. In 1936, a 23-year-old Swiss artist named Murray Oppenheim. So it's not Oppenheimer, it's Oppenheim, the original. Bought a teacup, saucer, and spoon from a department store in Paris and wrapped them in something. Oh, wait, hold on. Had been in Paris. Mary Oppenheim had been in Paris for 4 years when one day she was at a cafe with Pablo Picasso and Dora Maar. Interesting. So that is foreshadowing for what we're about to talk about. So yeah, the theme of what I've been getting into is artists and their lives, and it happens so organically. I mean, this podcast, you know, in a real sense, in a very real sense, it's almost like a joke, and it's strange to. It is a podcast, but it has such a small audience and like such an informal character, though that's kind of normal for a podcast, but that it in some sense, it really is more of a journal than a podcast. But then again, in many senses, it's more of a podcast than a journal. I mean, I do, when I'm writing in a journal, sometimes I do, you know, communicate similar to how I talk, but, you know, not exactly the same. Anyways, so yeah, it happened very organically because I would talk about just like my YouTube channel, and I had a whole episode of this podcast where I think it's called like What's Therapy, where I'm like going through my every single channel on my video and saying whether I think it's art or not. Like, I believe that's what I did. So that was cool. And that came from a very real place of like, you know, when I was working on this Breaking Bad video, I I think it's something I had felt many times before, but it's like, sometimes it's almost like, wow, I really am using these parts of my brain that don't feel art based. And that's very vague and it's very intuitive and hard to explain, because when you're doing art, when you're painting, you're not constantly like, ooh, la, 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 you know? Like, you're just like, there could be very much a sense of like practicality and logic to a lot of the decisions you're making. It's not necessarily always like pure emotion or whatever, nor should it be. But like, something about video essays to me became like, I don't want to have to make a point. Like, wait, I'm writing about masculine. Wait, I'm trying to like briefly explain the connections between masculinity and capitalism. And like, I guess I have a point, and it is good to share, but like, that's not really important to me to do in public communication, like in a sort of work that I'm presenting. It is important, but it runs its course, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. So like, I would find myself at this point where I'm like, okay, I just hit the mic stand. I just don't like, I don't want to have to put this effort forward forever towards this kind of thing, I guess, is how I felt. And there's a reason that I, finished the video and have been painting and, doing things that are not digital, because it's nice to be away from the computer. I spend a lot of time on the computer, and doing things that are not as rational. There's also something I may have mentioned before, but what I love about painting compared to video making and music making, which I'm also very into, but had sort of slightly like spent less time on due to video making. But what I love about painting is that you experience it as an audience member in an instant. I love that fact that you just experience time is not, I mean, it is a factor and your eye moves around the painting, but in a really more significant sense, of course, compared to music and video, you just absorb the entire work of art in an instant. And there's something really cool about that to me. The fact that I can just show someone a painting I made and just get an instant reaction. It doesn't have to be they fucking sit down for 45 minutes and watch my video. And then like, it's just like, I still love all my videos and love people's videos and stuff. It's just like, it's weird to me. So it started to feel really weird working on that video for so long and just being like, I stand by everything I said, I think. And like, there are some mistakes for sure, but it's generally, I'm really happy with it. I just like, it's funny to me, like, and I do have videos that are even more directly like, this is my perspective on this subject than that, because the Breaking Bad one, I feel like, does have a lot of just like dalliances. Speaking of which, before we come back to what we were talking about, I was watching the new Bobby Broccoli video, one of the best video makers on the platform, I would say, one of my favorite. And it's about a Canadian company, Nortel, and it's extremely well made. And it was making me think just about the different ways art comes into play. Because for him, his art is very, very diverse. He has his animation art, which is profoundly, like, I think, like, really next level shit. Like the types of graphic representation he does for his videos. He's really created a whole original style that he repeats but varies, in each video and develops in each video, and it makes you really absorb the information. And it's everything else about it is extremely well made, and it's conceptually very interesting. He tells a story in a really interesting way. He has a lightness, a sense of humor. And yeah, it was just making me think about, like, that's almost like it's like when you have such a good video essay, it really shows you like what the medium can be. But it's still just inherently different from painting or from music, where, when I write lyrics for a song, I'm not like, is this correct? I'm not wondering whether my lyrics are correct. Maybe I am. It's just usually in a more abstract way, I guess. Whether I'm saying something true rather than, but the truth is maybe something established in a more direct and subjective way in poetry rather than nonfiction prose. Where the truth is established in a more objective and shared way. I don't know. We're just riffing here. Anyways, back to the subject. So, I would explore on early episodes of this podcast, like my own process of making these videos and making my channel and what it means to me and how it felt. And it really did I mean, it was back in January, and it was right at the time I was thinking about this exact stuff and starting to work on the Breaking Bad video. So the start of this podcast corresponds exactly with the start of working on the Breaking Bad video. Literally in the first episode, you can hear me it's called episode 2, but it's that's just because we had some test episodes. But so episode 2 is episode 1. You can check the full playlist, which is I should make that more accessible for Patreon people. Yeah, I'll remind Patreon people how to find that. But no, actually, they know how to do it because they could just use the go back on the date and stuff. Yeah. Go sort by audio and then go by the whatever. Okay, it doesn't matter. So exploring my own artistic process led to me talking about things I started reading that explored other people's artistic processes. I read some books about artists, so I've been following up on that. Okay, I just took like a 30-minute break and cooked some food for myself. I had some rice already cooked and some beans already cooked, and I had broccoli, so I just threw that all in a pan with some butter and some cheese that a friend gave to me yesterday for free. Some Gouda, and just melted some Gouda into it, and it was really good. So just had a nice little breakfast. That was sort of all I had in the house. But I was hungry, and so I needed to eat. Oh, the window's open. Hold on. Oh, I forgot that I opened the window to get some fresh air in here. Okay. So I've been reading biographies, and as I mentioned last week, I started this Picasso biography. I'm gonna follow up on that, but I did also want to briefly mention the Mark Rothko biography I mentioned reading. I don't think I noted this in my comments on the subject, but one really interesting piece, I was talking about how Mark Rothko, he was born right around the turn of the century in a very well-known Jewish settlement in Russia, where the Jews were forced to live in specific settlements. And this is a very famous one. I forget the name off the top of my head, but it was a huge percent of the country's Jews lived in this specific place, and wasn't very great in terms of quality of life. And it's interesting because one thing I forgot to mention, just especially given the violence in Palestine and Israel that's currently going on, which I talked last week about finally posting on YouTube about that. It's interesting. It's not like the biography of Mark Rothko is the place to learn about, the geopolitics of Israel, but it was interesting in that it gave an insight into the sort of a perspective on Zionism, because Zionism was just getting going, basically. I think it had started maybe 15 or 20 years earlier, but it was really picking up at this time in that part of the world, for obvious reasons. The Jews were fuck this place, I think. And then they, some of the more fundamentalist religious ones were well, maybe we have the right to, I don't know. It's not like the book was really about, I'm not going to give you a full description of Zionism, because honestly, I don't know, whether, do you inherently are there some people who are Zionists in the sense of Jews should have a homeland, but they shouldn't steal other people's land about it? Is that a form of Zionism? Because it's hard to imagine that. It seems inherently wound up with Zionism. It's a manifest destiny. We have I'm getting texts. Oh, okay. Yeah, interesting. It was just interesting because Mark Rothko's dad, I don't know if he was a Zionist or he became a very Orthodox religious, and I don't know if he fully was a Zionist but he did force his little kid, Mark, his youngest child, to be, to do all this like very religious stuff that Mark was very resentful about for a long time and never seemed to get over, according to the biography. And then the whole family moved to, I think, Portland, Oregon. First the dad and the two older sons, I think, and then Mark's mom and his sister and him. And Mark was super resentful about that. But it's interesting. I was thinking, I forget the exact details. I think the book said his dad, like, sort of didn't, he was a very political minded Jew, but I don't know if, I thought they said he might have just full on been a Zionist, but at a certain point, I thought they had said like, oh, he wasn't Zionist, but he was a very political Jew. So I don't know. Yeah, it's interesting to think of how that could be exactly at that time, but maybe, I don't know. I'm just kind of riffing here. But it is interesting. I was thinking that he then moved the family to Portland. It's almost like they just found a different Zion. Like, I don't know. That's not what the book said, but I couldn't help being like, wait, he was affiliated with all these like Zionist people in Russia, and then he Zioned the family to Portland. So makes you think. Anyways, so yeah, I've been reading this book about Picasso. It's actually not a biography, as I'm sure I made clear last time. It's about this one person, Francois Guillot, who lived with Picasso and had 2 children with Picasso. She lived with him from like 1945, I think. Wait, when did it? Yeah, it was like 1945, and at the part I'm at, they're like having their second. They just had they had their second kid. It's like 19. Oh, they met. I'm sorry, 1943. Yeah. Okay, I knew it was before. Yeah, before the end of the war. Anyways, it's extremely well written. It's by Francois Guillot and Carlton Lake, and it's just such a profound look into this artist. And wow, I know most people know this already, but he was a real piece of shit. I mean, he really was a real piece of shit. And if you ever, like, I'm not even like a good people versus bad people thing, but if you treat people like he did, like, you're a piece of shit. Let me just read you a paragraph from the page I'm currently on, more than halfway through the book. This is not the most wild stuff, but it gives you a taste. This is from the perspective of Francois. The building, she's talking about the new building he got for his studio. He didn't want to spend a lot of money, even though he must have been so wealthy. Because at this point, this is like, he's been very, very famous for many years. Like, he was viewed as like a decadent artist by the Nazis and shit. Like, he was already very, very famous, of course. So he had done Guernica. He had done, arguably he had fucking peaked and was completely past his prime. So it's like this really fascinating look into the most intimate life with a guy who's just like, he's like 60, 65, and he's just like still, I mean, I'm saying he's past his prime, but he's still selling paintings for more and more and more and more, and doing pottery and doing sculpture and doing all this stuff, and just not happy, and just like has no real friends or relationships, and is like tests everybody and basically like trolls everybody, and is just negative about everything, and always makes his ego the most important thing, and just like a monster, and really views himself as a monster in this like a megalomaniacal kind of self-deprecating but self-aggrandizing way. Anyway, so here's a little bit. So he bought a new studio. Okay, this is Francois talking. And I know the last episode was called Picasso Verbatim, but I don't even, this is different because it's her verbatim. It's Francois verbatim. The building was a very rudimentary construction. There was no central heating, and we had to install a huge stove in each room. The sculpture studio was large and high vaulted, about 35 feet by 25. It required a stove to match, with pipes running all around. And since the tile roof was far from tight, the heat kept moving on up and out, so the fire had to be pushed all morning long. She has these amazing descriptions of like very, very detailed technical processes that you're like, wow, it's a nice break from the Picasso shit. Then there were the two painting atelier. What does this word mean? I've literally read it so many times. I've read this word. It's been in the book hundreds of times, I want to say. Atelier. How do you pronounce that? Whoa, I'm not pronouncing that right. Hold on. Atelier. Yeah, I am. I think I am. Atelier. Wait, hold on. No, I'm going to do pronunciation. This is a fun thing we've done on the podcast before. We do pronunciations. I learned how to pronounce Ivatangwe. Pronunciation. Ivatangwe? I didn't learn it that well. Okay, here we go.
You are looking at Julian's pronunciation.
Okay, man. Hold on. Just get to the... Wait, he starts with croissant? Okay, hold on. Here we go.
We are looking at how to pronounce this word and more confusing vocabulary from French used.
Dude. Okay, I get it. You gotta get a little watch time.
In English, atelier is...
The description for this video is welcome. Here you will hear how to pronounce atelier correctly, i.e. the correct pronunciation.
It's how it's said in French. Now, in English,
wait.
How it's said in English. Atelier is how it's said in French.
Atelier. Okay, that's... Wait, how do you say it in English?
In English, atelier.
Atelier. Okay. It's the private workshop or studio of a professional artist in the fine or decorative arts. Okay, so it's a room. There's nothing about it that's different except it's a room for painting. Okay. Wow. So it's just an old word for a room for painting. Okay, cool. Anyways, so let's get back to that quote. We didn't get to the point. That was the point. Okay. There were the two painting ateliers, each with its big stove. All these stoves had to be started by 8 in the morning, otherwise it wasn't warm enough for Pablo to work there in the afternoon. He had very suavely made the point that it was only when I built the fires that the place ever got warm enough to work in over the long hours he kept. So after I got through coaxing the heat system back to life at La Galos, I'm not going to look this one up. La Galos. I'm sorry, I don't know how to speak French. But that's their home. That's where they live. So after she got starting the heating system at their home, I would pedal down to the atelier and start the stoves there. Of course, they all had to be cleared of yesterday's debris before new fires could be built. That was my setting up exercise every morning from the beginning of November to the end of April. I wouldn't have minded this routine, even in the winter, except that as usual, I was generally up with Pablo until very late and I didn't get much sleep. Never more than 5 or 6 hours a night. Pablo slept until noon as a rule, but I had to get the household and his day organized. Stoking the furnace at La Galose, and building the fires at the atelier were only the prelude. I went through the mail, sorting out the things that required immediate action. Since Pablo never answered letters, that meant letters for me to write. And then since we had no telephone, I had to go to the pottery to see what needed taken care of there. Sometimes I had to show people the work he was doing at the pottery. But before any of that, there were the children to be dressed, washed, and as soon as they were old enough, gotten ready for Marcel to drive to the École Maternelle, daycare. And both of them gave Pablo reason to cut my ration of sleep even further. And Claude was born. After Claude was born, Pablo began to make a Freudian slip that was quite amusing. Whenever he wanted to speak of the child, l'enfant, he would say l'argent, the money. At the Rue des Grands Augustins, that's their other home, Claude slept in the room next to ours. That's their home in Paris. We went to bed about 1 or 2 in the morning after Pablo had finished his work. One morning about 3 o'clock, Pablo suddenly sat up in bed and said, "The money is dead. I don't hear him breathing anymore." I had no idea what he was talking about. I saw he was awake, not dreaming, so I asked him what he meant. You know very well what I mean. I mean the child, he said. I told him that was the most peculiar mix-up I'd ever heard. You don't know what you're talking about, he said. It's the most natural thing in the world. Freud even says so. After all, the child is his mother's riches. Money is another form of riches. You just don't understand those things. I told him I could hear breathing sounds very clearly from the next room. That's the wind, he said. My money is dead. You go see. I went in to look at Claude. He was sleeping peacefully. I returned to our bedroom and reported to Pablo that the child was not dead. That happened about twice a week. Often Claude would wake up while I attended to him. That meant a half hour or so before he got back to sleep again. Of course, looking after him like that gave him the habit of repeating his demands. I don't know if she's talking about Pablo or the baby, actually, with that last sentence. So that's a long excerpt, but I mean, that really gives you the perfect insight. I mean, there's all these other looks at, like, Pablo Picasso loves bullfights and going to bullfights like a totally normal person. And, you know, but then he gets extremely stressed about how many tickets he's supposed to order. And then on the day of, he doesn't want to go. And, like, apparently almost every morning he doesn't want to get out of bed at all, which, like, you know, if that's your life, fair enough. Like, but he makes her get him out of bed, you know, and it's a fine line saying makes her do it, because obviously it's her choice to be with him. And that's totally valid. She wants to be with him. She wanted to be with him when she was 21 or whatever. And she wanted, you know, he did push the issue of having a child both times, but she did agree. Also, you know, I would never take that away from her. So it's complicated, you know, and he uses extremely angry and even threatening language when he gets mad. He's threatened violence. He has not committed violence, I don't believe. But he's clearly emotionally manipulative on an extremely, like, a universal level to everyone in his life. It seems like he doesn't seem to have people he respects, or treats with respect, I guess. I mean, he has people it's like a wolves and sheep thing. Like, he has people he might be intimidated by, I feel like painters he might be worried about being better than him, like from the past or something like that. Delacroix or something. Anyways, so it's just been a very interesting read. There's lots of very, wild moments. I mean, there's literally a moment of description where she and him went over to Matisse's place, because he and Matisse were like, they saw each other a fair bit. They went over to Matisse's place, and usually Matisse had like an assistant, like a woman assistant who would just like help with stuff. And the door was like cracked open when they got over there, and they assumed that like the assistant had just popped out for a minute or something. So they just let themselves in, Pablo and Francois. And so they go in, and Matisse jumps out from behind like a curtain and goes, cuckoo, to like scare, thinking it was his assistant. He's so embarrassed when he realizes it's Pablo Picasso. And as Francois puts it, Pablo like intentionally like tries to make him feel way more embarrassed, as he would in any situation where he gets the advantage over someone. And it's just like, can you imagine that? Like, I don't know much about Matisse, but like, that is like, where else would you get that bit of information but in this extremely interesting book? And there's more. I mean, there's like, yeah, there's more. There's all kinds of interesting details. But I'll probably pick this up next time. And because I think this is probably enough for the podcast for today. And we'll have plenty to talk about next time as well. I guess there's no chess update. I'll do the screen time report while I'm here. My weekly screen time report of screen time on my phone. I used my phone. It was like, it just said, and then it went away. It was like, yeah, wow. It was like 30 minutes less on average every day in the last week compared to the week prior, because I had used it a ton the week prior. But yeah, messages, Gmail. I've been Gmailing a lot on my phone. Okay, yeah, nothing really interesting to report there. Cool. Okay, well, thanks so much for listening, and I'm so glad to have done another great episode of the VJP. So I'll see you on this thing next week. It'll be a busy day, but I might do a night pod next week. I don't know. We'll figure it out. And goodbye. This is a podcast or something like that.